And now I am very, very pleased to welcome to the stage the two-time Oscar award-winning director, Barbara Kopple, for her newest film,
Right. So I would like to have all the filmmakers who worked on this project and come up. And I would also like to have Roland Guidry and Dr. Jim Scott come up.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Come on, we can all
fit.
We're all close to one another.
So Barbara, just to kick things off for all of us.
Yes.
So, you're no stranger to making a film about war. Your first collective film, Winter Soldier, as well as, Shelter, I'm sorry. So you've made films before that deal with warfare in a different way, but what was it that drew you to the story of Desert One?
Well, Zach, at History, this was something that they were very keen on doing. And when we started really thinking about it, we really wanted to do it. So we proposed that they let us do it, and he was kind enough to accept that.
Wonderful. And actually, Zach, could you share with all of us while we're here and while it's all fresh, what is happening for the film with History Channel and how we can spread the word and tell everyone about Desert One?
Yeah, well, the film will be airing on History in April. It will. Breaking news. So yeah, it'll be on then, and we're sort of pursuing the festival circuit as well, and looking for distribution.
Okay, great. So you guys can tell your friends April, if not earlier, at a festival. So what I'd really love to know, there's so many things I'd love to ask about this film, but tell us about how you secured the interview with Jimmy Carter and what you did to prepare for that, because it's key to telling the actual story in addition to the tapes that we see and to the graphics that help explain everything, but having Jimmy provide his perspective, Mr. President Carter. Please tell us about that.
Well, getting the interview with Jimmy Carter was not an easy feat. It took 3 months, and I had lots of friends helping, Bernie Aronson, who was Mondale's speechwriter, and Jerry Rashun, who you met in the film. And then they said, okay, well, you have to call this guy named Phil Wise at the Carter Center. And he would never call me back. And so I would call him, and his voicemail was so nice and charming. Howdy, this is Phil Wise, and leave your message. So for months, I started having a relationship with his voicemail. And I would leave all these messages, some funny, some pleading, but I didn't stop. And finally, one day he called and he said, okay, Barbara, this is Phil Wise, and you can come. And he actually picked Valentine's Day, February 14th, and I found the best chocolates I could for President Carter, and I had been to a place where hearts were made by women, and there were little red hearts from other women who were really struggling. And so I brought that for the First Lady for Valentine's, red heart, and I got a letter back from her thanking me. But the interview was great. We had all of 19 minutes and 47 seconds to interview him, and there couldn't be any before chatter or anything, because that would all be part of the time. But he was wonderful. He really opened up, and he really spoke to us and let us know how he felt.
I'd love to ask the subjects of the film, I don't know if this is your first time seeing the film, but if it is, what thoughts do you have to share with us about what your reactions are? Being asked to be in a documentary and share some very, very personal things is never easy. So anything that you would like to share with us about how you feel about the final product? Sorry, we are literally a mess of wires up here in mics.
It- Obviously, you could see that I was young when this happened, and when you experience the media and it revolves around your life, you can develop a lot of emotions and feelings, and many times skepticism. So it was very important for me to hear that the Warrior Foundation, which was born in the desert out of this story, and they got in touch with me, and so I was happy to do it because it's obviously an important story to tell many aspects. But with some trepidation, and the crew at Cabin Creek have been gracious and kind, and filled out my piece here, and I checked off my name, and then I said excellent, because I did the story a wonderful justice, and I would be proud to have anyone I know see it.
And that means that all of you have to vote. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us about singing the song?
19, a pretty great year for me. Pilot in the Air Force. I got selected to command the flying squadron. And later that year, my squadron was selected to be the lead aircraft to rescue the hostages. Then in 1980, I got hit by a double whammy when, as a major commander in the task force, the mission failed and I lost 5 people. So I've been asked over and over, how have you coped with 39 years of people associating you with a failed mission? In the early years, it was pretty easy because I was selected to help form an outfit at Fort Bragg, top secret. Nobody heard about it. It was in the shadows. And that was the corrective action for the failure. The outfit is called JSOC, J-S-O-C. And I was happy to spend 3 years there helping with the first JSOC success, which was rescuing the American students on the island of Grenada in 1983. Then I went on to other things in the Air Force. And probably the thing that's helped me the most in coping was I married a trophy bride who was very supportive. So in the ensuing years, because I was the primary person that lectured on the topic, it's on the internet, I got calls from film producers. The first one 5 years after the mission. I want to do a documentary on Desert One. So great. I lined up interviews, got material ready. It fizzled out. Another 10 years later, same thing happened. Another producer called me. We want you to help us line up interviews, interview you. And again, it fizzled out. Then all of a sudden, about a year ago, God sent me an angel. She said, I want to do it, and I can do it. She has done it. She has had the guts to try and succeeded. So, hope you win a lot of accolades, but among your trophies, here's something to put a little vial of dust from Desert One.
I'd love to talk about the animation. I think that the animator is here with us. Yes.
Hello.
So we, obviously it's a huge challenge when you don't have footage from the actual event. Come join us. There's a space right over here. So obviously it's a huge challenge when you don't have the actual footage of the events that are taking place, and Barbara's a master at telling the story. But can you talk to us about the creative process of coming up with the animation and how you decided on what colors to use and how to portray the different individuals?
Oh, I haven't decided much. I think mostly it was she choosing black my board. I wanted to activate. and producers, Eric, and the editor, Francisco. And well, it was not much my choice, but they choose me to do that. But the interesting thing is that I grew up half of my life in Iran. I'm 40-something. So we used to celebrate the event. It was this thing that America, the great Satan, tried send military to rescue their evil agents, and the God sent this holy sand, and they all died. So I used to be forced in school as a kid to draw it, because I was good at drawing in school. So I used to be forced to draw the story in it. And as a kid, I mean, everyone knew it was a funny story. I never believed it. I forgot about it.
You never believed it.
No, we knew it's God doesn't send sandstorm.
Okay.
And maybe some people believe. We didn't believe because all our life was packed with these religious extreme lies about history.
Right.
So I forgot about it. I moved here, work on, try to survive here in US. And then after years, and she told me like, there's a chance to tell you that what really happened with people who actually did it.
Yeah.
And for me, it was emotional. It was a journey.
It must have been incredible, especially with the introduction, of Muhammad Abedini, the 11-year-old who was on the bus, who tells us his story of witnessing firsthand what happened during Desert
I
Storm.
never heard about him ever.
It's absolutely, I mean, like, what an incredible find by your team.
Yeah, we have to give a shout out to the Iranian producers that we were able to work with, Kalare and Kati, who were able to help us navigate in a very difficult place to film. And we're able to secure those amazing interviews, including the boy on the bus, which is unexpected when he appears, but hopefully he's a memorable character.
He is, and the fact that you're able to see him in the flesh, but also in the animation from his perspective.
Yeah, just like revisiting the whole story and have a chance to actually do what real is without being forced, and it was amazing.
Well, thank you
I think
so
it's
much.
great I think Americans forgot about what happened too, so it's like, it was an equal sharing thing. I'm like, okay, I'm Iranian and I'm sharing exact same confusion with Americans, and now we all figure out what really happened, and that's amazing.
Well, thank you so much. One last question for you, Barbara, before I throw it out to the audience. You mentioned at the beginning.
I also wanted to let the editor talk, Francisco and Wendy and Dave Cassidy and whoever else is there. Say a few words, just a word or two.
Do you guys want to speak first? Do you have any comments that you'd like to share with us? Let's talk about the editing. I mean, it's seamless and beautiful. You're working with lots of different archival footage. You're working with animation. You're working with first-person interviews. Barbara's typically a cinema verite, observational filmmaker, and this is different. So how was the editing process for you?
I mean, it's a privilege to work on the film. To be brief, there was a challenge in this gap of when the mission goes dark, literally, and to sort of figure out how to tell that story. The discovery in the production teams and the research to find these Carter tapes really transformed the depiction of that, and that took the film to another level. It was a real team effort. It sounds like a cliche, but it really is. Like, everyone brought so much to the table. It's an editor's dream to be able to have so much material to work with, albeit it's a complex, dense story, but it's an embarrassment of riches, despite what seems like on the surface a visual problem. It wasn't that when we have a guy like Zartosh to bring it to life. And Wendy's music, Wendy, she brought so much color. I think it's too short. You gotta come on.
Wendy, there might be one behind you. We have more. There's more mics behind you guys. Yes.
And also Deborah's.
Yeah.
And Deborah's sound work.
Literally a wealth of mics and wires on this stage.
It's a great team that Barbara assembled.
Wendy, thank you so much for sharing that. And Wendy, the score it seamlessly works with all of the different footage that we're seeing on screen and helps bring us into the interiority of the experiences of the soldiers that were participating in the Delta Task Force. How did you come up with the composition and what was your inspiration?
It's the story of these people that moved my heart and soul, and I still cry at so many times, and I guess we've seen the film about 300 times. Seriously, we lived with it for months, but I still cry. I mean, Joe Mayo, all these different people, your dad, all these people became a part of our lives. And also, it was really, we were a family at work. We know each other, working together. We wanted to do beyond our best. We knew we had a great story to tell. The music, as you can tell, is very emotional, and yet it also speaks to the military aspect and all that, which is actually kind of new for me. But, you know, when you have your heart into it and you're very dedicated and you have people around you helping guide you, then, you know, I think we all together did something that was inspired by these people's story.
Right, they got
I'm very
to try.
grateful to have been a part, of this, actually.
Thank you so much.
And thank you. Dave, did you have anything to add?
I wouldn't mind acknowledging that the Ambassador Limbert's family is here with us as well, who just saw the film for the first time. We have Ambassador Limbert's daughter and grandchildren with us. We're grateful to have you, and your parents were, your mother might be the best host in the world, just so you know. She fed us the best food and served us the nicest tea. But no, I guess my sentiments in watching it yet again is, you're always looking for that moment that what did you take away from a film and what are you going to carry forward? And just to carry forward, I think just how much respect I have for President Carter, and just to watch a man over and over again and just see something new every single time, the level of dignity that he carried himself with through failure and difficult times and guided this nation. I don't think he gets enough credit and enough understanding. Everyone looks at him as having failed in some manner, and in fact he kept us out of a war. And he accepted everybody around him. He was the leader that we needed at that time, and he's the leader that we need today. I don't think there's a president who's done more post-presidency than President Carter. He is a dignified man, and to give us that time is something to carry forever.
Thank you. And actually, a follow-up to that, Gabe, I don't know if you're the producers or Barbara, if you guys would care to comment, or I'm going to ask you to speculate. You know, given the fact that the mission effectively was a huge part of why President Carter only had one term, and has set the tone for what continues to be our current relationship with Iran today. Would you care to speculate on how different things might be had the mission been successful?
I think that's really hard to tell how things would have gone. And I'm not saying that because he lost and Reagan won that's why we got this, you know, Trump and some of the others, but I couldn't speculate on that.
I know it's a hard question.
It was amazing to watch and to hear from the men in the military that we interviewed and their families about their perceptions of Carter. Some were pro-Carter, some were anti-Carter, but I think to a person, all of them, when he made the decision to send the mission, were proud and felt that he showed strength in that moment, whether they agreed with his policies, whether they were left or right. You know, Beckwith in the film says he almost fell out of his chair. No one thought he had the guts to do it, and he did, and they respected that.
And it's interesting too, because a lot of the people who saw this film, who were in the film, said that they had a whole new understanding of who Carter was after they saw the film. So that was very important.
Yeah, I can perhaps add something to that. The mission failed for two reasons. The unsuspected dust that impeded the helicopters, and the helicopters above normal failure rate. Had one or the other occurred, the mission may have succeeded, but both occurred and created a synergistic effect that doomed the mission. That shocked Congress, that shocked the Pentagon, that all of a sudden we're spending billions and billions on preparing for the next war, which is looked at as the previous war, a mass airdrop of the 82nd Airborne over Europe, which will never occur again. And it shocked the American government into thinking that maybe the next type missions are going to be little dirty wars against militant Islam, and that has proved to be correct. I mentioned earlier the formation of the top secret unit called JSOC as the corrective action for the failure of this mission. Well, guess which two units were first assigned to JSOC? The Delta Force and SEAL Team 6. Okay, so if you can look at the Somali pirates, Osama bin Laden, and now al-Baghdadi, those were all JSOC missions. So that was the unintended consequence of a failed mission that gives us a special operations capability today, second to none.
Let's have some questions.
We're going to turn to the audience, so Barbara, you must indulge me for one question. My one question is, you
Never get questions, because we
will.
talk so
We
much
have
on the
plenty of time,
stage.
Guys, you are all going to have time for
My
questions.
son said, "Are you gonna have a Q&A tonight?"
We will, I promise. My one question for you is, you mentioned D.A. Pennebaker at the beginning of the film, and you came up under the Maisel brothers, and I just wanted to ask, was there anything that you took from working with any of those three gentlemen that you applied to the making of this film?
I think a sense of truthfulness and really digging deep into people's souls to see who they are, and storytelling. But truth and trust is really what they taught me, and perseverance.
As the many voicemails attest. Thank you very much. All right, now, audience, please, and I better see a lot of hands. Yes, right there.
Mine isn't a question. That movie was absolutely superb. It may have been the best documentary I ever saw.
That was a lovely compliment to Barbara and her team.
Say it again.
The best documentary that this gentleman has ever seen. Do we have any other questions for Barbara and for the animators and the editors and the composers and the producers that are up on stage with us right now, as well as the subjects? Yes, in the back.
I'm curious about the gentleman who was an 11-year-old boy on the bus.
Mohammed Abedini.
When you interviewed him, were you censored, or was it open? Was there an open dialogue?
They didn't have minders with them when they interviewed him.
No, and it was an Iranian crew of women who interviewed him. That was our
Everyone self-censored in a level in Iran when they interview.
Well, I don't think he was.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, yeah.
Barbara, actually, could you talk about that a little bit more, about your Iranian crew and about the work that they did? Because they were also instrumental in getting Fayez Molishi, I think?
They got all of
Who was
them,
the guard
yes.
that you guys heard from?
Well, the Revolutionary Guard
Yeah.
assigned people, and I think that they found the 11-year-old.
Okay.
So, and they were wonderful, and we had long conversations with them on the phone, finding out what they were doing. And they also checked up on us, and somehow we passed muster so that they could do the filming.
And they brought in so many subject matter, so I'm just curious, did you give them a lot of creative direction? Was it much
So we
more-
gave them a lot of questions and things, but we said, you don't have to use these. Just see where they take you. And they would report to us after each filming. Did you want to add something?
One thing I wanted to add is we didn't sneak these interviews out of Iran. We went in through the front door. We wrote a proposal. This is the film we want to make. We want to tell the story of this mission. And we'd love to hear your perspective if you'd love to share it with us. And they said, yes, we'd like to share it with you.
That's wonderful. Thank you guys both for that insight. Do we have any other questions for our incredible cast and crew up here? This is your moment, guys. All right, I'll keep going with mine until you guys decide what you want to ask about. Let's talk about the archival footage. Maybe you would like to speak as the editor about the archival footage. I mean, there's so much footage that's included here, and I mean, there's footage from Iran, there's footage from Jimmy Carter, but like, there's also footage from the ceremonial once we bring home the bodies that were salvaged from the mission. There's obviously a lot of names that are mentioned in the credits, but talk to us about the process of finding all of the archives.
It's look everywhere and anywhere in all the libraries and all the archival houses. And, unfortunately, it's a mixed bag, but back in the day, there was many small little archives stored around the world, but they've since been bought by larger companies. The big ones now being Veritone, Getty, and others, and the television networks. That was, an initial place to look. We also, the Iranian crew was able to connect us to an Iranian archivist who had been building his own collection, and he was willing to share some of the material, like that footage shot at Desert One hours after the mission, which he had transferred from 16 or whatever he had shot it on, that he was willing to share it with us. The National Archives, which we were able to screen the film in DC at the National Archives, and I failed to thank them and their staff for the amazing work that they do, and maybe use this as an opportunity because it's a little complicated to work there, but there's a tremendous resource, and that footage at Arlington, et cetera, and finally the people at the Carter Library and Museum, which were very helpful, so thank you.
Just a question for all of you that are on stage. In some ways you could argue that so much was known about this, and that perhaps the Iranians and the Americans forgot about a lot of what happened during the Desert One operation and the Iran hostage situation. Were there any surprises for any of you along the way? Something very unexpected that happened during the course of filming? And if so, please share with us. It looks like you might have one.
It's part, I'll sort of combine that with the archival question, because the thing that didn't really dawn on me until I had sort of combed through the archival footage with the editorial team and the producers is that you really got a sense by watching the day-to-day coverage that all eyes were on the embassy every day. As you saw in the film, Nightline emerged from it. There is a kind of like proto version of what eventually became the 24-hour news cycle and this sort of daily obsession with this case, with this situation. And then the mission happens, and then it's about the mission. So you could see sort of nationally the obsession with the case, but the real sort of sense that it was truly, truly secret. Like it was kept top secret. And the media really was driving the story, the pressure on President Carter, fueling Reagan's campaign with around this issue. And then when it happened, it also then helped propel Carter's loss from office. And so you could see how the media really drove the story, but they knew just as much as we did. And then conversely, and perhaps perversely, they were also supplying intel because of the lack of intel that the CIA and the people planning the mission required. And so there was this kind of interesting symbiotic thing going on between the media and the people involved in planning it.
And for me, it was being able to spend time and to interview so many of the people who were part of it and see how each different person told a story that somebody else could leapfrog on, and how open and honest they were. I mean, you were in tears quite a few times during this, and that was incredibly beautiful to see, just how human and how they really wanted to talk about this experience and how much it meant to them.
Well, I would like to thank all of you, of course, the men that served, thank you so much, but also for all of you for having the guts to try to make this film. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, please figure, you have a question now. All right, last one.
It looks like the time that went into the research must have been absolutely enormous. How many hours went into the research?
The question is, how many hours went into the research of making the film? And I'm not sure who on the stage would like to field this one.
A better, no offense, a better way to answer the question maybe is just full production time, which was, I think, about 2 years.
2.5.
2.5 years. Research was going on throughout that whole time, as was, all the other parts that go into making a film.
Well, thank you guys for your 2.5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. It was so